Story 1. It was the summer of 2014, and I was 22, broke, and living alone in a small one-bedroom apartment just outside of Des Moines. I'd recently started working night shifts at a fast food chain I won't name, the kind that never really closes, 24 hours, every day of the year. My shift was 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., and after a few weeks, I started to feel like I was living in a different world from everyone else, a quieter, stranger world. The store was a standalone building near the edge of a shopping plaza, tucked behind a dying strip mall. During the day, it saw a decent flow of traffic, but at night, it became a dead zone. There were usually just two of us working those shifts, me at the register in front, and one other guy in the back doing the kitchen work. That night, it was Tyler. He was in his 30s, kind of gruff, mostly kept to himself. We weren't friends, but we worked together often enough to have an unspoken rhythm. It was around 3:10 a.m. when it started. I was cleaning one of the soda machines when I heard a faint knock, barely audible, like someone gently tapping on glass. I looked up, thinking maybe someone was at the drive-through window, but the screen was blank. Then I heard it again. Knock, knock. Slow and deliberate. Not at the front doors, not the drive-through. It was coming from somewhere else. I walked toward the side of the building where there was a small maintenance door we never used. It didn't even have a handle from the outside. I stood still, listening. The knock came again, 3 times, right at ear level, maybe 6 feet from where I was. I felt a tightness in my chest. I opened the door quickly. Nothing. The parking lot was empty. Not even a car idling in the dark. I stood there a few seconds too long, I think, trying to process it. Then Tyler's voice came over the headset. "Everything good?" "Thought I heard something," I said. "Guess not." He didn't respond. I went back to the counter, trying to shrug it off. Sometimes kids mess around late at night, though we hadn't had issues like that in a while. Around 4 a.m., I took my 15-minute break and stepped outside to have a smoke. The air was dead still. I sat on the curb near the dumpster, scrolling through my phone, when I noticed something in the distance. Someone standing at the far edge of the lot, where the pavement faded into weeds. Just standing. No movement. I couldn't make out their features, just a shape. Thin, slight. They were maybe 50 feet away. I blinked, and they were gone. I told myself it was a trick of the light. My eyes were tired. It was too far to be sure. Back inside, I found Tyler standing near the back sink, staring at something. "There's someone outside," he said quietly. "By the side door. They've been standing there for like 5 minutes." I felt a jolt. I asked if he'd seen a face. "No," he said. "They don't move. Just standing there, like they're waiting." I went to the security monitor and toggled the camera view. Sure enough, there was a figure standing just outside the camera's range. You could see the edge of a sleeve, a shoulder, just out of view. I went to the maintenance door again, heart pounding, and pulled it open fast. Nothing. Tyler joined me a few seconds later. "They were there," he said. "I swear to God." We stayed close to each other for the rest of the shift. Neither of us said much. I think we both felt it. Something wasn't right, and we couldn't explain it. When dawn finally came, we locked the doors behind us and walked to our cars together. As I turned the key in the ignition, I glanced back at the building. There was something written on the window in grease pencil. I hadn't noticed it before. 3 words, faint but unmistakable. "See you again." I didn't go back the next night. I called in sick. Then I quit the week after. Tyler never mentioned it again. We never talked after that. I still don't know what we saw, or who was knocking, but I think about it every time I pass a fast food joint at 3 a.m. Story 2. I was visiting my sister in Oregon when it happened. She lived in a small coastal town, the kind of place with 1 gas station, 1 grocery store, and a few fast food chains clinging to the highway for relevance. I was crashing in her guest room for a couple weeks after a breakup, trying to get my head right. I'd been doing late-night drives to clear my mind, usually ending up at this 24-hour burger joint near the place. The place was strange, even in daylight. Always a little too quiet, like the air itself was tired. At night, it was worse. The lights buzzed, the windows fogged up no matter the temperature. The speakers on the drive-thru crackled constantly with white noise, like they were trying to catch a signal from somewhere else. That night, I got there around 2:45 a.m. The parking lot was empty except for a pickup truck parked diagonally across two spots. No lights on inside, no movement. I figured someone had fallen asleep waiting on their food, but as I pulled into a space, I realized the truck was off, cold, and the windows were so tinted I couldn't see inside. The kid working the counter was one I'd seen before, skinny, maybe 17, with braces and a permanent squint. I ordered a milkshake and fries, and he gave me this tired, wary look like I'd just interrupted something important. Still, he nodded, tapped the register, and disappeared into the back. The dining area was empty. I sat at the corner booth next to the window. The ocean was barely visible beyond the cliffs, just a suggestion of movement in the dark. The minutes dragged. 10 passed, then 15. I stood up to check on my order, but there was no one behind the counter. No sound of the fryer. No chatter. Nothing. "Hello?" I called out. No answer. I walked to the swinging kitchen door and pushed it open slightly. What I saw didn't make sense. The kitchen was spotless. Too spotless. No fry baskets out. No grease trays. No utensils. No half-wrapped burgers or drink cups. Just a single stool in the middle of the floor, and the uniform the kid had been wearing folded neatly on top of it. Shirt, name tag, even his shoes underneath. I backed away slowly. That's when I noticed the cameras. Tiny black domes tucked into each corner of the ceiling. I don't know why, but I suddenly felt watched. Not just seen, observed. I went back to my booth, grabbed my keys, and was halfway to the door when I heard the deep, hollow voice come through the drive-thru speaker. "You forgot your order." It wasn't the kid's voice, too deep, almost mechanical. I froze. Then it came again, louder. "You forgot your order." Something about the way it echoed. It didn't sound like it was coming from outside anymore. It felt like it was inside the building now. I sprinted out the door. My car took 2 tries to start. When it finally did, I peeled out of the lot. As I passed the pickup truck, I looked over, and I swear to God, the driver's seat was empty. But the passenger window had a handprint smeared on the inside. It was too big to belong to the kid. I drove back to my sister's house with the lights off for half the trip. I didn't sleep that night. The next day, I convinced her to drive by the place with me. It was boarded up. Not just closed, abandoned. Windows nailed shut. Sign taken down. Like it had been that way for weeks. I checked my phone, pulled the receipt I'd used Apple Pay for. Nothing. No charge. No record of a purchase. That burger joint doesn't show up on Google Maps anymore. And when I asked around at a gas station nearby, the clerk frowned and said, "You mean the one they tore down last year?" I didn't answer. I just walked back to the car, sat there for a while, and tried to convince myself it was all just a dream. But sometimes, when I drive alone at night, I'll pass by an empty building, and for just a moment, I'll hear that voice in the static. "You forgot your order." Story 3. Back in college, I worked late-night shifts at a fried chicken place just off campus. It was a small franchise, mostly catering to drunk students and late-night delivery apps. I was a senior at the time, living with my roommate Caleb. We both worked there, him in the kitchen, me up front. It wasn't a bad gig. Paid the rent, fed us greasy leftovers. We mostly kept to ourselves and didn't ask too many questions. One night in October, we were working a skeleton shift, just the 2 of us. It was a Thursday, and the weather was miserable. Cold, foggy, drizzling off and on. Business had been dead for hours. I remember checking the clock around 2:12 a.m. and joking that we should just shut down early and lie about it. Caleb didn't respond. He was staring at his phone with this blank expression. When I asked what was up, he just shook his head. "There's no one out there," he said quietly. "What?" He turned the phone toward me. The app we used for delivery orders had glitched somehow. There were no driver icons on the map, not just around us, but anywhere. The entire city grid was empty. No couriers, no customers. It was like everyone had vanished at once. We refreshed it a few times, thinking maybe the app was down. Then, As I was putting my phone back in my pocket, the door chime rang. It was a man in a hoodie, not a student. Older. Mid-40s maybe. Pale, slightly hunched. He didn't look at me as he walked in, just stood by the soda machine, staring at it. I waited for him to approach the counter, but he never did, just kept staring. After a minute, I cleared my throat. "Hey, you want something?" Still nothing. Then, very slowly, he turned to look at me. His eyes were this strange, washed-out blue, like faded denim. He opened his mouth to speak, but didn't say anything. Just stood there with his lips parted like he forgot how. Caleb came up beside me, whispering, "What's his deal?" I was about to reply when the man took a sudden step forward, fast, like he was about to lunge. We both flinched, but he stopped just short of the counter. Then he smiled. Wide. Too wide. I swear it didn't look natural. "Do you have the Tuesday special?" he asked. I hesitated. We didn't have a Tuesday special. "We don't. I mean, this is Thursday," I said. His smile faded a little. "No, it's Tuesday." He said it like he was correcting me, like he was certain. Then he pointed at the register. "It's already been paid for. I just need the bag." I looked at Caleb, who looked back at me with the same what the hell expression. There was no order waiting, no receipt, nothing in the system. "I think you've got the wrong place," I said carefully. The man didn't react. He just kept pointing at the counter like he was waiting for us to hand him something invisible. Then he whispered something under his breath. It wasn't English. I don't think it was anything. Just a low string of consonants and clicks. Caleb stepped back. I stood frozen. And then he just turned and walked out. No drama, no yelling, just gone. We locked the door behind him and stood there in silence. About 30 seconds later, the phone rang. I didn't want to answer it. I really didn't. But I did. There was no voice, just static. Then a faint sound, like breathing. Then the click. That's when Caleb noticed something on the front counter, a receipt. Dated Tuesday. It had my name on it. The order was for a 2-piece meal, mashed potatoes and a Coke. My usual. The timestamp said 2:12 a.m., same as the moment I joked about closing early. We didn't finish the shift, left everything behind, and walked the mile home in silence. A few days later, I asked the manager about that night. He just looked at me funny and said, "You weren't scheduled last Thursday. Nobody was." He pulled up the camera footage. Nothing. No video of us, no customer. Just an empty store. Lights off. I don't know how to explain it. Maybe we dreamed it. Maybe we imagined the same nightmare. But I still have that receipt. I keep it in a drawer in my desk. No one believes me when I show them. Hell, I barely believe it myself. Story 4. A few years ago, I was driving cross-country after my dad passed away. I needed time to process everything, so I took time off work and just drove. No destination. Just the road, motels, and gas stations. Somewhere in the middle of Nevada, I stopped at this old fast food place off a deserted stretch of highway. It wasn't part of any chain I recognized. The sign out front was half lit and read something like "Burger Time" with faded letters and a missing E. It was around 11 p.m. The parking lot was completely empty, but the neon open sign buzzed faintly in the window. I pulled in, figuring I'd grab something before hitting the next town. Inside, the place was frozen in time, like it hadn't been updated since the early 90s. Old plastic booths, ketchup dispensers that looked like relics, and a cracked tile floor that echoed with every step. Behind the counter was a single employee, a woman in her late 50s, maybe early 60s. Her uniform was faded red, and her name tag simply said, Bev. She smiled as I walked in, like she'd been expecting me. "Take a seat, hon," she said. "I'll be right with you." I hesitated. Fast food places don't usually have table service, but I went along with it. I sat near the window and watched the darkness outside. The only light came from the buzzing signs and my own headlights. A few minutes passed, then 10, then 15. No food, no Bev. I stood up to look behind the counter, and she was gone. There was a hallway past the fryers that led to the restrooms and a supply room. The lights back there were dim, flickering. I called out once, then again, but no answer. Something about the silence felt wrong, not just quiet, hollow, like sound didn't travel normally here. I turned to leave, but stopped when I saw a man standing outside my car. He wasn't doing anything, just standing there. His back was to me, head tilted down slightly like he was looking at the pavement. At first, I thought maybe he needed help. Maybe he'd broken down. But he never moved, even after I watched him for a full minute. Then the lights inside flickered again, bright this time. I looked toward the kitchen. Bev was there now, right where I'd first seen her. Same pose, same smile. "Sorry for the wait, hun," she said. "Your order's up?" I hadn't ordered anything. She held out a tray with a burger, fries, and a milkshake. The cup had my name on it, handwritten in marker. I started to say, but she just smiled wider. "We know what you like." I didn't take the tray. I turned and walked straight out the door. The man near my car was gone. I got in, locked the doors, and peeled out of the lot. I didn't stop driving until I saw other headlights, hours later. 2 days later, curiosity got the best of me. I tried to find the place again on Google Maps. Nothing came up. I zoomed into the highway, trying to retrace my route. No marker, no listing, not even a pin for a gas station nearby. Eventually, I found a blurry street view image from a few years ago. The building was there, but boarded up. Graffiti on the walls, clearly abandoned. The sign out front didn't say "Burger Time." It said Chester's Smokehouse, and it had closed permanently in 1999. I swear the place I walked into wasn't abandoned. It wasn't dirty. It wasn't empty. I still remember Bev's voice, that smile, and how she knew my name without asking. Story 5. It was the middle of winter in Minnesota, and I was doing overnight shifts for a delivery service. I'd stopped at a fast food drive-thru around 1:30 a.m. It was one of those fusion taco burger joints that never seemed to close, no matter the weather. That night, a snowstorm had rolled in hard. Everything outside was muffled in white, and the roads were dead. No other cars, no footprints, just silence and that thick, falling snow. The drive-thru speaker crackled when I pulled up. A woman's voice came through, calm and too clear. "Go ahead with your order." I gave her my usual: chicken sandwich, fries, large coffee. There was a pause, just a little too long. "Okay," she said. "Please pull forward." As I rolled up to the window, I noticed something strange. The dining area lights were off, completely dark inside except for the dim glow behind the counter. No music, no background noise, just the low hum of machinery. The window didn't open right away. I sat there for maybe a full minute before a man appeared in the shadows behind the glass. He didn't come to the window. He just stood there in the dark, maybe 10 feet back, partially lit by a flickering freezer light. I knocked lightly on the glass, hesitant. The man didn't respond. He wasn't wearing a uniform. No hat, no name tag, just a gray hoodie and cargo pants. His hands were by his sides, but something about his posture made my stomach clench. He wasn't waiting. He was watching. Then the window slid open halfway, but no one was there. The lights flickered again, and for just a second, I could swear the man was closer. Still not at the window, but closer than before. Then I heard it. My own voice. Clear as day, coming from the speaker behind me. "Can I get a chicken sandwich? Fries? Large coffee?" Exactly what I'd said. Same inflection, same rhythm, but I hadn't repeated it. The speaker crackled again. Silence. Then the woman's voice came back. "Okay, please pull forward." I whipped my head around toward the speaker, but there was no one there. Nothing but my tire tracks in fresh snow. I looked back toward the window, now closed. The man was gone. I didn't wait for the food. I drove straight out of there, heart pounding. I pulled into a gas station 10 minutes later just to shake it off. The clerk looked up from his magazine and gave me a nod. "You coming from down Highway 12? He asked. I nodded. He gave me this sideways look. "You stop at the burger place?" "Yeah," I said, hesitating. "Why?" He scratched his chin, looked uncomfortable. "You're, not the first." I asked him what he meant. "Couple truckers stopped in here last week. Said they went through that drive-thru, saw some weird stuff. Voices. People who weren't really there. Place has been closed for over a year. Gas leak in the kitchen or something. Corporate pulled out." I told him that was impossible. I'd just been there. He shrugged. "I'm just telling you what I heard." I didn't sleep much that night. The next day in daylight, I drove back. Needed to see it again. Make sure I hadn't lost my mind. The building was still there, but it was boarded up. Windows shattered. Graffiti on the side. Snow drifting in through a hole in the roof. No lights, no signs of operation, and no tire tracks in the snow, except my own. I walked up to the drive-thru window, brushing snow from the ledge. There was something scrawled on the glass, barely visible unless the light hit it just right. "Please pull forward." I haven't delivered near that area since. And sometimes, when I'm alone in my car at night, I'll hear my voice crackle through the static of the radio, ordering something I never asked for. Story 6. A couple of summers ago, I was backpacking through parts of the Southwest. Cheap motels, dusty back roads, no real agenda. One evening I found myself driving through a town called Embry. You won't find it on most maps. Just a strip of cracked pavement lined with flickering street lamps and 3 open businesses. A pawn shop, a liquor store, and a fast food place called Red Rooster Diner. It wasn't a chain. The sign was hand-painted, crooked, and buzzing faintly in the heat. But I was starving and running on caffeine fumes, so I pulled into the lot. Inside it looked like an old converted house. Wood-paneled walls, no uniforms, no register. Just a counter, a few booths, and a chalkboard menu hanging behind a middle-aged man in a button-down shirt. He greeted me with a polite nod and said, "Sit wherever." There was no one else inside. I took a seat in the corner booth, the vinyl stuck to the back of my legs. There was no music, no fan, no hum from a fridge. Just silence and the faint sound of the wind outside. After a few minutes, the man came over and placed a glass of water in front of me. I hadn't asked for it. He didn't offer a menu. "You probably want the special," he said. "What is it?" I asked. "Something filling. You look like you've been on the road a long time." He wasn't wrong. I nodded cautiously, unsure what to say. He disappeared into the back. I sat there staring out the window, trying to place what was bothering me. Then I realized there were no cars on the street. Not even one. Directly outside, the lot was empty now. I got up and stepped outside. Nothing. No cars, no traffic, not even the breeze anymore. I checked my phone. No signal. The time said 11:06 p.m., then 11:06 again, and again it wouldn't change. I stepped back inside. The man was already at my table, a tray in front of him with something wrapped in butcher paper. "You okay?" he asked. I nodded slowly, heart beginning to race. "Where's my car?" He tilted his head slightly. "You walked in." I didn't. His smile didn't quite reach his eyes. "Of course you did." I picked up the tray, just to look. Inside the butcher paper was a sandwich. Nothing unusual. Brioche bun, meat, lettuce. But it smelled familiar. Deeply familiar. It smelled like my mother's kitchen. Exactly like it. A smell I had experienced in over a decade. Not a memory. Not something like it. Exactly it. Even the spices were right. "I don't understand," I said. The man sat down across from me. Nobody ever does. I pushed the tray away. "What is this place?" He looked at me like he felt sorry for me. Genuinely sorry. "You came here," he said. "You asked to be fed." "No, I didn't." He raised an eyebrow. "You sure?" I stood up, suddenly desperate to leave. I walked to the front door, yanked it open, and there was no parking lot. Just darkness. Not night. Not fog. Just absence. Like the world ended at feet on the porch. I turned back inside, and the man was gone. The table was empty. The tray. The food. Gone. But something was still cooking in the back. I could hear it. The soft hiss of a grill, a metal spatula tapping against steel. I left. Ran. I don't remember how I got out. I don't remember walking. But I ended up on the side of a state highway 20 minutes later, waving down a trucker like a lunatic. When I turned back, Embry was gone. Just open desert stretching to the horizon. The trucker swore he'd never heard of the town, said I must have fallen asleep in the heat. But the smell, it lingered on my hands for days. And every now and then, late at night, my phone resets itself to 11:06 p.m. I never eat at roadside diners anymore, not even when I'm starving.